The lad Bedeni has been made aware of the findings and the things from Raph and those before us, and now he is intrigued. He likes where things are going through some backstory and understanding a little bit of his own place and his own fascination and thirst for knowledge and what he is out there on his own, attempting to obtain and figure out. Differing perspective in a way, similar but different at the same time than a few of, or mainly everybody else that we've run into up to this point. And now that led the way for us to do some trials, some testing to obtain some potential helping of advancement within society from Bedeni. So hopefully things go over well for him. Hopefully he doesn't really get caught up too much with him and Oxy working together here for what the church may end up finding at some point. I'm sure he doesn't really care unless his life fully is going to be gone, but he seems to be fully fine with anything else that they're willing to to go out of the way and take, I mean, his eye included. So we'll see what happens. And especially if you're able to allow research and things to be done through somebody else, and Oxy being that sort of person, to then, have him still look into all this stuff on his own time, but be things that you won't really get caught as much, I guess, could actually work out. So I'm interested to see how they loop everybody into this to make it work and sneak around potentially if needed. Oxy was also able to get some growth as he was able to fully open his eyes and look up towards the skies without having the eyes look down upon him. So that's a big bonus, especially for somebody who they've made it out to be known since the beginning is going to be the guy probably for having that sharp eye and for, visually observing these things. So, being that person now who's almost in a scenario where he has to be that, I think it works itself out nice. So hopefully you find some good stuff and everything works out. Hopefully you enjoy. If you like and subscribe, not to me, feel free to stick around with the discussion. Limited content this other series is going with episode 7 of Orb. Yolenta. The one from the ED. Door close, immediately go. Awesome. That's sick. What a score. Right where we left you. Rest, right. Yeah, that's a big one.
何とは言わんが、君は我々とは明らかに違うからね。さん、オタクも大変ですね。まさかヨレンタ君が助手につくとは。
ええ、全くです。助手が優秀すぎるのも扱いに困りますね。え？これから先の人生、君の本質と無関係なところで、君のすべてを否定する輩と出会うかもしれない。そしてその度、心が折れそうになるかもしれない。だけど、君は自分のやってることを信じて進むんだ。いざって時、引いたら終わりだ。
What a nice guy. What a lad.
はい、これです。
どれ
？More of a role than I was expecting.
面白い。よくできてるよ。まだ若いのにすごいな。本
当ですか？
よし、決めた。これは私の方からピャスト博に提出するよ。
ピャスト博に？
ああ。ちょっと査読をするから、その間
Do you mean that? Do you mean that?
この機に実家にでも顔を出すといい。
実家
Take some time off.
これが評価されたら、図書館から晴れて天文台勤務だ。 忙しくなるぞ。今のうちに帰省した方がいい。
はい。
Hmm.
惑星の中心は太陽である。2、軌道は深淵である。3、惑星は一定の速度で運行する。まとめると、それがこの書物の主張であり、独創的な
Which
発想である。
which of those do you disagree with?
真理ですか。
いや、限界だ。とても発表できる完成度には達していない。きっと何かを見落としてるんだ。このままでは反論の余地はかなりある。それに全体的に言葉選びの思慮深さに比べて根底に何か幼稚なほどの純粋さを感じる。不思議な著者だ。
To be fair, though, they're also fully created for people who have similar interests to be able to pick up on it and not to be presented
完璧な
publicly.
冷血だけだろう。
そんな人どこに。
You're looking at one. Come on.
というわけで正式に引き受けよ
引き受ける。
う。ん？君はそれを頼みに来たんじゃなかったか？
そうでしたっけ。
Not really.
そうかも。
Yeah, in a way it was, but at the same time, no.
とで3つ決まりを交わしたい。
Yeah.
1つ目、更新は作らない。死ぬまでに私が証明できなかったら、私の関わった書物すべてを燃やす。
Interesting. That sets us story-wise up in a weird spot.
他の誰かの踏み台にされるのはごめんだからな。
わかりました。
What the fuck was the previous sacrifices for?
この研究に参加してくれ。その代わり、食事と寝床はうちの教会から提供しよう。
Cool. That clears up so we don't go back home, alright.
すべてが守備よく運んで利益が生じた場合、分け前は9対1だ。
That's crazy. That's crazy.
それはダメです。俺たちが受け取れるのは9割までです。
何？
あ、いや、確か。この手紙に利益の1割を誰かに渡すって。
ん？利益が生じた場合、ポトツキに1割渡すこと。共同研究者か？
なので、我々は9割を分け。
Oh, well, guess it doesn't exist. Didn't happen. 9 to 1.
これでもう書いてない。
Right.
では、そろそろ村へ戻るぞ。
I didn't agree to nothing. What's me? Out of sight, out of mind.
やっぱり守りませんか。
はあ？なぜ？もうこの世から消えたぞ。
Because you probably wouldn't have figured any of this out if it weren't for
俺は
that.
まだ覚えちゃってるというか、多分あの手紙を残した人は箱を開けて読む人のことを信じてアーク
Right, end up with a dick like you.
今ここにいない人の思いを無視したら何かが決定的に失われる気がして。
何かって
Something
な
will
んだ？
prohibit us potentially from learning it too.
というか、
Yeah.
はあ？聖書以外の歴史など私は気にしない。どうしても払いたいなら、君の1割を譲ればいい。
あ、はい。
Still an option.
最後に聖職者としてあれに触れた今の我々は地獄の入り口に立ったと思いますか。
ああ、入り口には立ってる。
He has a complicated relationship with
だ
that.
が、展開のだ。
久々の家族団らんはいいものだな。
私も心安らぎました。お父様も出張で忙しいですもんね。
Yeah.
まあな。お前も少ししたらまた職場に戻ってしまうのか。
はい。仕事があるので。
その仕事だが、なんか悩みが。
I think it might be causing you concern.
しかし、今の仕事でも十分じゃないか。働けているだけで大したものだよ。
でも、私も他の方と同じ試験を合格して、
Mm.
なのに他の方と扱いが違うのは。
しょうがないことさ。お前はまだ14歳だ。それに、あそこで働くただ一人の
Yep.
女だ。いいかよ、レンタ。お前が職場ですべきことは一つだ。何もするな。目立つな。
They're avoiding showing Novak's face for a
日
reason.
々を粛々とつつましやかに暮らせば、いつか家族で天国へ行ける。
だから私は神と真理のためなら引きたくない。才能も発展も人生もいざって時に引いたら終わりだ。
お前ももう立派に自立してるもんな。心配でつい出過ぎた真似をしたよ。すまなかった。
ください。ください。
何してる？行くぞ。
はい。
施しなど無意味だ。貧民に施しを与えれば天国に行けるなんて私は信じない。平気で罪を犯す奴らだ。
You know, dude, you're an interesting guy.
様がそんなこと言う
Yeah, exactly.
神が彼らに与えた運命があれなんだよ。第一ここへ来た目的は彼らとは真逆のモテる者との接触だ。
That's. You're not here to meet with the bums.
だからあっちから出向いてもらう。
And you plan on letting that happen?
これだ。
The pound board. You're just gonna publicly to.
出題者になったり回答者になったりして腕を競ってるんだ。彼らは掲示板に難問を求めてる。私の作成したとびきりの難問だ。天体の記録と優れた知性がないと解けない。手分けしてめぼしい掲示板に貼って回ろう。あとは回答者が出るまでひたすら。
論文が評価されたら天文台。論文が評価されたら天文台。
おお、戻ってたかい。
I have a weird feeling that he's just gonna take full credit for it, though.
論文って今と。
いや、それがね、なんとピャスト博が褒めてくださったよ。新鮮で興味深いと。これは快挙だよ。新たな才能の誕生だ。ん？
本当にありがとうございます。
いやいや、礼には及ばないよ。名義は私で出してるし。
Yeah, okay. So exactly as I thought. Yeah. So be happy about it, but at the end of the day, you don't get any credit for it, so you're not gonna move up in the world.
だから、名義は私の名前に変えたけど、君の論文なんだから、誇りに思ってよ。
Unbelievable. I mean, that's what he said. He has to make use of you somehow, right?
いや、それはだって、女性の論文なんて誰が読むの？でもあったら一大事だ。すぐ魔女扱いされて、最悪異端として殺されるよ。でも安心して。そんなこと、私は絶対起こさせない。君には才能がある。
Let's try and flip it like you're doing the great things for her.
それで私が評価されれば、助手の君を安全に天文台へ引き抜けるかもしれない。私なら、君を正しい方へ導ける。この世界でのうまい動き方を教えられる。
でも。
It can get you there, but it's not the world you want to be in.
私の名前は
ないよ。もう諦めて。この世はそういうもんだから。名前が残らなくても、自分の書いたものを発表。
Yeah, at least your thoughts will be out there. Nobody will know they're yours, but at least they're there.
心配だよ。変に目立って目をつけられたら最後。君の人生って軽く終わるよ。じゃ、またかけたら持ってきてね。それでは。
待って。
Whoa, 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 whoa. Whoa, whoa, whoa.
おい、君。
You were that?
この前の論文を君が書いたと言ったか？
あ、それはですね。
自分で答えろ。どうなんだ？
それは。
Actually don't know if he's going to be proud of this or if he's just going to start accusing her of things.
女性の名前で発表なんて危険すぎる。
でも、いざって時、引いたら。
何もするな、目立つな。
引いたら。
Despite the warnings.
軽く終わるよ。
引いたら。
女性の論文なんて誰が読むの？
Could be realistically the only opportunity you have for this too.
私のものではないです。
そうか。
I do wonder if there'll be some sort of rebellion and she's gonna see the notices and stuff left in the town. That's what's gonna cause her to go rogue.
コルベさんは悪い人だったんだけど違う。彼は善人だ。本当に私をかばったんだ。
It's hard to tell yourself that's not what he's doing too.
私が見られる最上の景色なんだ。これが私の現実だ。そもそも名前なんて本質じゃない。考えが幼稚すぎた。世界がこうならうまい動き方が重要だ。
Look at the board
早速次だ。次は何を書こう。次は
and get yourself pumped up.
なんでなく。そんな
This is your first big thing. You got your hopes up, and look what happens.
とにかく次だ。今私にできることはそれしかない。
That's what they all say until they get sucked in.
新しい題材を探さないと。
Oh, wait a second.
回答者へ宇宙論について要件あり連絡されたし、惑星の記録がないと解けないんじゃ。コルベさんはレスか。今なら記録
Yeah,
が
lucky opportunity.
これか。わあ、こっちは木星。いいな。みんなはこんな自由に大量の記録が閲覧できるなんて
You know, when you're trying to be sneaky, you probably shouldn't be talking out loud.
ことしてない。いや、してるから。普通に考えてダメすぎるから。いや、でもこれで新しい論文書けるかもで。うん、やっぱり悪いことだ。これは良くない。やめよう。
It's calling you back.
悪いとかどうでもいいから、あれの答えが気になる。
Yeah, you already went against it once.
だから考えよう。
バデーニさんの問題の前に人がいる。
Perfect timing.
もしかして回答者？
はあ、もう今朝貼ったばかりだぞ。
Her whole day's been on this. Yo, good shit.
回答しちゃった。大丈夫だよね、さすがに。男性名にしたし。いや、でもここで誰かに見られたら。いや、こんな不安になるくらいなら、なんでもっと考えて行動しなかったんだろう。こんなことく
You already got it up, and now you're concerned.
られる前に、さっさと退散しよう。
あの
Yo, squad. Miss Jolenta comes forward as our new member to join the trio. Somebody who we don't necessarily know anything about, but at the same time have some prior knowledge, potentially with Novak being the father to her. So it's a fun little wrinkle that we can get into a little bit. She presents a fun, not fun, I guess, but fun in in the way that it's different dynamic from what we already have of being a person who gets labeled almost directly from their gender, and that being the larger hold up almost on the things that they're doing, as opposed to what we've kind of explored up to this point, with everybody having like these own fears and worries of heaven and like all these other things, and instead, you know, her more so just wanting to be as adventurous and study and do whatever it is that she can, but being frowned upon almost for just being who she is, being something that she can't necessarily help, and then not being allowed to be put in a position that you can do something because, oh, if you do, it might be witchcraft or something, and then you get burned in the same way that you basically would if you were going against what the church wants. So it just puts you in a really rough spot, and she's even playing with even more fire now than the others, simply through her own gender. So it's going to be a rough one, I think, for her. And there's plenty of routes, not obvious at this point, but plenty of routes and things that we can potentially go with having, you know, her father have to be the one who catches her, and then really putting to the test of a job's a job, doing everything I do for her. Well, he kind of let her go. Does he, like, how much does he really care? If, you know, opportunity like that came about, would he be able to kill his own daughter, having to, then potentially see the own embodiment, I guess, of like what Raph actually likely would have been had he gone on and gotten the proper education and everything that he needed to a few years later in the future, and the things that you kind of robbed essentially from him, being within, you know, one of your own here. It's going to be a fun thing, I think, on his end to really get into, and I'm excited the most, I think, for ultimately when that ends up coming about. Jolenta comes in and she is fun so far, probably the most fun out of all the characters that we've been introduced to since Raph, at least. And I like her inclusion. She feels a little bit more real. I don't know, the feelings and the things that a lot of the characters have, Oxy being specifically one of them, are just really hard for me personally to connect to, which I have talked about already. You know, the fear that something, you know, overhead is kind of looking down upon you and altering every decision and the things you do in your life and keeping you in constant fear, and all this stuff doesn't necessarily apply to me in any way, and is not something I feel personally I can connect to, on top of his own just sort of issues and feelings, and, you know, trying to connect and understand this theory and what his role is going to be that he ends up playing to find the beauty within the world. It's a little difficult. I don't know. I haven't been able to connect to him in any sort of way. And even having other characters like Denny, who is more, he's pretty fun when he's on screen, unintentionally, but it's just, you know, at his truest form, who he actually is, still doesn't have anything I think I can personally connect to. But the overall emotion and things that Jolenta kind of goes through with this, of the struggle of really wanting something, the push and pull that she's almost going through, the similarity that we had with Raph, you know, and is like, I gotta focus, I gotta do this, I gotta do what's right, but I keep getting dragged in and pulled into this. It's the same thing kind of with her that makes her want to go about and sneak around and do whatever it is that she can, so that she still has the opportunity to, you know, learn and progress society and her own self a little bit more into the future here, just to increase her own, you know, use of knowledge. It's something that I definitely feel like I can connect to a little bit more, and it feels less character like, it feels more human, I think, almost, which is a really nice touch, and something I think definitely would be much needed, considering the other two that we've been introduced that we'll probably be following along for a majority, if not the remainder of the series. So I'm enjoying her a lot when she's on screen. There's definitely things, of course, that I can't fully connect to, one being her own, you know, issues of just who she is, being, you know, passed up opportunities and things that she could get for being a woman, which is not ideal and not something I can, as you know, you can tell, really understand or connect to there. But I definitely can feel for and can feel a little bad for it. And they wrote it in a good way, a way that, like, I feel like I can't really get too mad at Colby in the situation, which I should, right? It's a thing. You don't just steal from others and, you know, limit their opportunities and take full credit on these things as your own. But at the same time, due to the time period and the unknowing, I guess, of what potentially could come about if it is found out that she's the one who is making these discoveries and things, it could be really bad, right? It's the fears that Novak is kind of trying to light into her. The do not bring more attention to yourself than needed. Don't go out of your way and do any of this. Just be content with the position that you're put into. You're very blessed to be able to be there. Don't make too much more of it than where you are, because bad things could come about, and we don't want that to actually happen. And once again, Colby is almost like protecting her in a way that you can view it as if, like, we were to allow her to just openly speak her mind and be like, yes, I did this. If he were to submit the paper with her own name on it, if given to the wrong person or even the right person, depending on who you give it to, could potentially be seen by somebody that allows you to be chased after and you to be viewed as somebody who shouldn't be able to have the ability to do this. And then that completely gets taken from you, potentially with your life alongside it. So we have to look at it as he is trying to potentially protect her, but we're not going to ignore the fact that maybe that won't even happen, and we don't know, and maybe he doesn't even know, and maybe he does know, but we don't know exactly what will go down or what could go down here. So there's always that opportunity that that he's just doing it to be a dick. So it's a little hard to like fully be like, I want to hate this guy, or I can't, or something. It's almost like I feel like I can understand fully where he's coming from, and I have to accept that for what it is. The other really big thing to talk about too comes from the conversation between Bedeni and Oxy with the idea of we will burn everything here if we're unable to like prove and publish something within my lifetime. It is still something that we can open up that he'll be comfortable enough, you know, through the people and the things that we learn and the people that he connects with and meets and stuff, that if his life were to have to come to an end here, he'd be okay passing this down to somebody and will maybe change his mind. But in the time being, where we have to look at this as is that sets us up on a story level of these are the people you're following the whole way through. And it doesn't set you up for the potential, like, we can just kill them off. Well, it still does. And like I said, he can change his mind last minute. That's almost the way that Bedeni himself is trying to present this to us. So it is something just to note that they might be already boxing themselves in that sort of corner, but there is that out that we can potentially get out of this at any point because the person's mind does change. You do discover new things. You do meet people and create new bonds and relationships and things. So there's nothing completely wrong if that's the decision that you choose to make and where you decide to go with it. But it is interesting to note at least that he is trying to set something up to be the final version and group of people who have access to this in any sort of way. And everybody goes off to the meeting, but look who isn't allowed to come. But she wants to sneak in. This is pretty sick of her having this little underground area. This is the most terrifying thing, being like confined to like these small areas, especially when you're crawling and you can't just stand up and have like full access to your body and everything, is the worst. I absolutely hate that. So just her crawling under here makes me feel a type of way. But she's able to learn and hear a little bit of the things she wants. It gets her excited. She's lucky to live another day and to have this opportunity. But of course, in similar fear here to Oxy, that, you know, she might be struck down and looked down upon through God and maybe not potentially be allowed into heaven or anything through her own actions of kind of sneaking around and doing these things in which she's not supposed to and just not being a good person overall. Answer is no. The consistent drifting apart and division of who they are versus you, despite being on equal, you know, education based levels and then having access to certain things be restricted of you. Cole, you got it rough. You got your assistant here who always wants to do all this stuff. But once again, making use of them can be a real issue. What do you mean by that? Well, we later do find out that that's how he plans to make use of her. Let her research and do all these things and give her access to this different information to further you along and make you look even better, because you're gonna be the one who takes all the credit for it. Times where you can't back down, right? Well, we presented multiple of those this episode, and some of them she did, and some of them she did not. Looks good, consistent praise to her. Why don't you go on home while I do this? Also, if you are let home and given the opportunity to do this, he has no issue at all not having to see you again after he knows what he did wrong by submitting it in his own name. And we have a discussion. We're going to split things 90-10. We explain the three things for the most part that we're able to figure out. And he gets a place to live, and he no longer has to has to go back and worry. And then he wants Potocki to get it. But if there is no notice, we're just going to burn that bitch up. Nobody needs it, which is hilarious to me, because of course it's not contractually obligated in any sort of way, and he's never met Raph or Potocki or anything, so it doesn't really matter to him. Selfishly, Wanna takes everything on, of course. Good for you, though. Just give him your 10% if that's really what you want. It's not put us at the entrance of hell. Oh, it puts us at an entrance, all right. Once again, the perspective difference of anybody who does view this would be looked down upon and be brought immediately to hell, whereas in Bedeni's sort of scenario views it fully as something to prove this and allow others in the world to experience and understand the greatness of what God has kind of created, that almost fully just invites you and welcomes you to the gates in a way. We frame this an entire way where Navek's not in this. It's obvious through the voice, and I think, you know, I assume I'm not the only one who thought of the idea that this potentially could be his daughter, as she was so important through the first however many episodes, especially to him and all of his dialogue moments, and then having the hair and stuff feel a little bit similar to her makes plenty of sense. I'm assuming this is a scene that was done in a way in the manga that probably creates more mystery because they don't show him at all. So when a reveal of that actually ends up happening, it means so much more than it will here because it's pretty obvious to us. It's hard, right? You got to have these conversations, so it's a little difficult. The only way I can think of, like, maybe you frame it a little bit different to keep the mystery alive, where she mentions or makes a note, and we show like a little flashback of her sitting at a table with somebody across that we can't see, and it's like a dialogue between herself, almost, of being like, went back home, talked to my dad about all this, and he mentioned, I should stay out of it, shouldn't do any of this due to like his own worry and everything from it. Due to me just being a woman and in the position I'm in and everything, and not wanting me to stand out too much. And we could have just kind of recalled it in that sort of way, I think, which definitely would still keep the mystery almost alive. But I'm not mad overall the direction that we go here. But I do believe that a mystery could have been a little bit more fun for us to have that reveal when the time actually ends up coming. And we see like her in the position that she was able to put in was due to the fact of, him leading her in this direction from a young age and trying to support her and do whatever he can to put her in that spot. But you do have to be a little bit concerned of it. You can make your own decisions at the end of the day. What the hell was up with this? What is he having full nightmares about with this, just for them to, it's not even crazy? Or is this supposed to be a joke? I'm not not understanding why it was done that way. But getting so interesting just with his way of thought, they're assigned to be like that. That's their fate. So giving them anything doesn't do anything. They're supposed to be like that regardless. So we post something up in the town. So I don't fully understand this, and if you can explain or make me understand this a little bit more. So Jolenta's her and all the people that are like kind of researching and stuff aren't necessarily creating theories and doing things that are going against commonly like understood or accepted theories, but instead just kind of researching these things based on the knowledge that is already out there, maybe expanding on it a little bit, but not trying to alter the way in which people fully think, would be my assumption, because then it doesn't do anything that goes too far against the church in any sort of meaningful way. But when we publicly post something like this, is this not like a concern? Like, should they not be a little worried that somebody's going to see this and then notice that it's them putting it up, or wait for you to potentially return or do something? Like, we're not trying to hide it in any way. Like, what am I not understanding properly? Unless this is just, maybe this is what I'm not understanding. And it's probably not all the research of like trying to fully prove the heliocentric theory or anything, but it's more of just like a mathematical sort of equation that contributes in a potential way of it. So it doesn't look necessarily as bad, but would prove the skill of somebody who potentially could solve this or could provide good feedback in a way that they might be able to be of use or of help for this. So maybe it is nothing to be overly cautious or concerned about on our own end. And we are being smart with the way we're doing this. I don't fully know. Hopefully I understand a little bit more. I created this highly advanced problem. Okay, so that's exactly what it is then. So it's probably nothing too crazy that would cause for concern or worry on their own end, and somebody else to be alarmed and have to seek them out in any way. But it would contribute, or the person who would be able to help here would contribute to us and what we're going after. I think would make plenty of sense there. By the way, I put my name on it, but you should be happy about everything, because you get some knowledge out of it. So stupid, but I mean, it makes sense. It's just, it sucks completely for her. And then having to be faced with this, you can make that decision. You can say what you want, but if you do speak your mind, you do potentially face the dangers that come along with it. And having to just resort to, it is what it is. Let me just lay back in this scenario. But she gets pulled back in as she comes to terms and finds something. Steals some books, does some things that she probably shouldn't, and then she goes for a full-on answer as our crew likely meets for the first time. Fun episode, good introduction on her part, and hopefully some good stuff to come in the future now that the team has been assembled. Hopefully you enjoyed. If you liked it, like and subscribe down to me. Feel free to check out the channel. If you comment this other series, I'll be back for the 8th episode very soon. I always have a great one though. Peace.